So yes, I have a massive problem with Warhammer. As in, I don't know why. I have no real nostalgia, as in I've only been into the hobby for the last 7 years. However, I'm attracted to all the rather old, out of print metal models that you're just hard to find or stupidly expensive. And it's not because they're rare, because I'm not what I'd call a collector. There's just something about the models that really get me going. But the models that really sort of get me going are dwarves. Now, whether they're old bugmans, or whether they're dwarf slayers. Slayers are my favourite. I actually made an entire Kings of War army using all the Citadel and pre-Citadel dwarf slayer models. To the point where I was even cutting up rare 25th anniversary models so I could have 3 of my favourite dwarf slayer models on one model. It's Gotrek, it's a Doomslayer, and it's Snorri being carried on a shield. I absolutely love this little conversion. Now, I do have nearly all of the Slayer models, however I stopped looking because I've built my army. I don't really need any more. However, there's some models that I didn't actually know existed till this little guy cropped up. This is a Dwarf Slayer pirate. It's like peanut butter and jelly, but pirates and slayers. He was my Dungeons and Dragons gunslinging dwarf. While we're talking about Dungeons and Dragons, let me tell you about this video's sponsor. Elderbrain's Crown of the Oathbreaker is a 500-page D&D 5e adventure module. It's got campaign settings with player options. It features dozens of new monsters, encounters, maps, subclasses, feats, spells, and some lovely magic items. It's a sandbox adventure that incorporates 30 dungeon maps, 3 regional maps, and over 100 locations, which will take your characters from level 5 possibly up to level 12, I've never got that far, but up to a level 12 in the kingdoms of Feyrealm. What stands out to me about this product is over 2,000 D&D fans actually vote for their preferences and gave the backbone of the adventure and the campaign settings. It's very community driven, and with that influencing all the finer details of the story and setting through Elderbrain's Discord server. Now, there's over 150 NPCs with their locations, portraits, all based on actual photos of the members of the Elderbrain community, which I absolutely love. If I could actually be a dwarf slayer pirate, I'd love to make that happen. Now, the last thing that I really like about this, the Elderbrain Soundscapes is a free mobile app with loads of dramatic, like non-repetitive background ambient noises just to set the scene and get your players immersed into the game. And you can still become one of the fully illustrated 36 new subclasses through Elderbrain's Indiegogo campaign. Check all the links below, guys, and become part of an actual adventure. Now, after painting up Plinker a few years ago, I went on the hunt and I was asking people in my group, and a viewer of the channel sold me a box of the models for a very fair price. I'm not going to be paying the £200 or £250 it is for a box set of these. However, there was more than the 8 in the box, but all the different characters within there, and I was happy with that. I probably will never ever sell these. I just absolutely adore them. And I think that's what I like about these models. I have a thing for the basic simplicity of them, whether that be paint job or whether that be the sculpting. They're just full of character. They're amazing. And anybody that's been a follower of this channel for quite a while understands I love old Slayer models. Now, I don't know whether this has been my subconscious telling me that my eyes are not great, and maybe that's what's been attracting me to models like this. When I do see more modern models, I'll just look at them as over detailed or something that I'm not going to enjoy painting because there's things that I'm struggling to see. For those that don't know, I've been struggling with something called a macular edema, which is in both eyes. And I've had to have about 5 surgeries over the last 18 months to correct the issue to stop me from going blind. However, what's happened is I'm suffering from some laser damage on my lenses of my eyes, and because of also type 1 diabetes and everything else, I'm losing my close vision a lot quicker than I would be doing if I was a standard 35-year-old. My eyesight's deteriorating about 7 years quicker than it should be. But maybe that's what's always attracted me to these older models. Because if I think back over the last 7 years that I've been in this hobby, it's not something new. It's something I've always liked. It's got to be the simplicity of the paint job, or painting of them. The thing that I struggle with most is base coats. Getting the base coats on neatly is something I have always struggled on. And I always resort to very thin paint like I'm doing here on the beard. I thin it down so it runs and acts slightly like a contrast paint but a lot more opaque. And I block colours in, and I rely on big areas of block colours that I can apply washes on, and I always paint with slightly lighter colours than I want them to be in the end. And if I have been a bit messy in recesses, or I have missed a bit, when you do put the wash on all over the model, it hides them little slips in the recesses, and you're just trying to cheat my way to getting a tidy base coat. However, I find this quite hard on more modern models because they've got more going on. There's not as much big, bold, over exaggerated areas, and these vintage models just have everything. I mean, that beard's huge, his head's huge, his hands are huge, everything's huge. Even if the model's slightly out of focus, I've got like an 80% success rate of hitting the area that I want to hit. On a newer model, I don't have that luxury. Now this is where I start to get quite excited with my miniature painting. I throw a wash all over them and let it dry. Then after that, even though my eyesight is not brilliant, the layering up of the lighter colours I find quite simple compared to base coating. Whereas I know when I speak to a lot of people find base coating the easy part and then the layering and bringing everything back up the hard part. Whereas me, I'm the opposite way around. What I do is I mix in some paler flesh tone with the base coat, and I sort of spread it out on the palette so you've got like the original colour and it's spread through till almost the neat skin colour of the paler tone. Now the reason I like to do this is 1, I can see the colour gradient on the palette, and 2, it's a lot easier because now the base coat's on, all I'm technically doing is tracing the higher areas. I'm not having to concentrate about getting paint on something close to something else because I'm leaving the recess, and that's the bit that you don't want to paint, or I don't want to get anywhere near, because if I was to put paint in that, it'd have been pointless doing the first step in the first place. So getting the highlights on the model is the fun bit. Even though I'm only going up 1, maybe 2 tones in colour, every time you take that colour up, you're painting less and less and smaller space, and I find that a lot easier. But that is a lot to do with these models. If this was like a in-scale figure, I can't do it. I struggle like hell. Whereas on these big, over-exaggerated models, just dot in some bright skin tone on shoulders, breasts, hands, palms, nose, cheeks. It's just simple because it's just a tiny dot, and I'm not worrying about touching anything else, because it feels literally like miles to the next major detail. Now, I've had the sign off from the hospital now, and now all the surgeries and everything are finished, I can now actually go get some proper prescription glasses, which hopefully should fix my sight and help with glare and flare and all sorts of other problems that I've been having because of the laser damage. So it means I should be able to get back into the hobby and start painting to a little bit better standard again. My standards have been slipping in my painting for quite a while over the last few years, and it shows when I look at my earlier paint jobs that I did 5 years ago. And this is not from lack of practice, this is literally my vision getting in the way. However, I really still enjoyed myself. And if anybody else is out there is going through the same sort of thing as me, or if somebody's just getting a little bit older and you're losing your vision a little bit, don't let it knock you. I still enjoyed painting these, even though it did take me a little bit extra time to do them. I only could get 4 done in the time of what I could usually get 20 done. But I enjoyed myself. And that's what the hobby's about. I think people forget why we paint models. Don't give a damn if you can paint well or you can't paint well. As long as you've enjoyed yourself, that's what matters. And to me, for me to enjoy myself, it's these old, what some people might think crappy old models. And to me, these older pirate dwarves, dwarf slayers, just crap over all the new models that are coming out. And any company out there that produces cool, quirky looking models like this, I'm quite happy to use and support and play with as proxies in games that I like to play, like Kings of War. Because they're great. I mean, pirate dwarves, man. The peanut butter and jelly of dwarf slayers. Pirates and dwarves. Do you like these old vintage models as much as I do? If you prefer them, let me know why in the comments below, guys. Because I'd like to see if there's more people out there that prefer these vintage models over the new packed full of detail models that are out there. I'm not dissing on the newer models because I do like a good modern model and I enjoy painting them. But there's just something about characterful models that I think are a lot more accessible to miniature painters, new or old. And if you are suffering with a few eye problems, they're just a lot more simpler to paint and they sort of make the hobby a lot more enjoyable than painting details that the size of Nat's asses to show off to your mates. So guys, I hope you've enjoyed this video. It has been a bit of a whine. It did get to me a bit. This video wasn't intended to be like this at all, but it's took me a long time to put together because I've literally struggled to see everything. But everything's fine. I'm all fixed up. There's no edema present or any fluid on my eyes or anything anymore. It's all sorted. So all's good news in the end. But anyway guys, if you have enjoyed this video, do check all the links below. And if you want to back the crown of the Oathbreaker, do check and help them out below, guys. But anyway guys, thanks for watching, thanks for tuning in. And if you want to support me any other way, there's obviously my shop where you can buy all your basic materials and Scenics for all your wargaming tables and D&D needs. But anyway guys, I'll catch you again for the next one. Love, love, love.